Today, I've got a very important guest on with me. Her name is D'Mia Spivey, and she's a 1L student part time who's also full time military. Trust me, you're going to want to hear all about this and the affirmation she's going to give you to keep you going in your school journey. Welcome, D'Mia.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Awesome. So I know you are super busy, but I got to ask you, you have one of the most interesting career paths and things that I really want to share your story with all of our audience. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, my name is D'Mia Spivey. I'm currently a part-time 1L at Loyola University, Chicago. And I am also, as a part-time student, a full-time uniform service member. So I am an officer in the US Navy.
Ooh. Okay, so officer in the Navy, full time, and a part time law student. How in the world did you end up here?
That is normally the million-dollar question that I do get when I ever tell anybody exactly what I do. So, law school has always been the dream. From high school into college, undergrad, I knew that I wanted to end up there some way, somehow. But as we all know, education does cost money, just as a factual statement. And so I ended up getting a full ride scholarship through ROTC to go to Ohio State University. And because they pay for my undergraduate, I do have to pay time back. And so I'm still currently serving out my initial contract for the Navy since they were able to pay me on a full ride scholarship. But I'm now currently at a job where I have time to allot extracurriculars. And I'm like, you know what? Now or never, I think I can fit in law school. And that's what we're doing.
Who in their right mind says, okay, let me fit in law school? That is so crazy. So, speak to us a little bit more because there's probably somebody in the audience who wants to know really how the ROTC works. I know I've heard about it, when kids are in high school and then, once they graduate, but tell us how that really works.
So for ROTC, and granted, this was now about a decade ago, which is crazy to say, but you'll go through several interviews with a recruiter of some sort. You have to be able to handle the physical rigor, obviously, of an ROTC program because the intent will be for you to join the armed service of some branch. And then when you actually get admitted into the program at whatever university, I more or less had the same commitment as an athlete, a student athlete. So for ROTC, you are required to do PT 2 to 3 times a week. You're required to have extra classes on top of your requirement. And then you are also required to do lead lab. So you'll wear your uniform once a week. You'll learn how to drill and how to really learn to become that leader for your sailors or your soldiers beneath you.
Wow, so that's a whole lot. But I think that when I think of the armed forces, I think of some kid who, just decided to go. I hear you're a legacy when it comes to the military, right?
Yes, I am. So I am a third generation Black female military member. So both my mother and my mother did 28 years in the Army, and my grandmother did 18 years in the Army as well. And then my father also did his time as well, but not as much as his mother, so my grandmother and my mother.
Wow, that's crazy that there's a long line of Black women in your family who have gone to the armed forces. You don't really hear about that often. I know I have an aunt who was in the Air Force, but mostly in my family, it's been the men who served. How does it feel being the third woman from your family tree to enter armed forces?
I will say, first and foremost, if a single word, it's empowering, especially for my grandmother. So we call her affectionately Nanu. So for my Nanu back in the 70s to be a Black female who went on for double digit years during that time, and she traveled around the world. My father went to high school in Heidelberg, Germany, and she was able to be stationed in Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. So for her to be able to go around the world and maintain rank and be a leader in her own right was amazing. Then for my mother, doing almost 30 years, when you see that as a kid, because I'm not even 30 years old yet. So to see her from me being born to now, she's been retired for a few years, you see the grind and you see the hustle, and you know that with kids, without kids, if you want to achieve something, it's possible.
So you put law school on top of it because that was always your goal. You're only going on the weekend, of course, because that's the only free time you got. How are you managing college on the weekend and working all week long?
Time management. The only way it works, because it is a weekend program, which a lot of part-time programs end up doing an evening, but for me and a lot of people in my cohort, it really wouldn't work out very well for how our schedules really are maintained. I have to be able to, one, be dedicated to it and enjoy the curriculum. If I didn't enjoy what I was learning, there's no way I could keep up the same rigor that I'm going through. But being able to schedule out my time. So if I'm going to leave work at this time, I'll have 1 or 2 hours of this class. I'll work on this paper. I'll ensure that I watch this lecture. And then when the weekends do come, having the best attitude possible. And I like to tell all my friends, like, we are JD candidates. There's nothing more that we could do. Like, we are living at the pinnacle of what we could be doing compared to our peers, even compared to the full time students who they also do a lot and a ton. Law school's hard for everyone. But if we're able to do this on top of having a job, I have friends that have multiple kids who are having full on career changes. We can do anything.
Yeah, definitely. When I think about it, unstoppable is what comes to mind because because I have service members in the family, knowing what all they do throughout the week, and then you turn around and put law school on top, which I've grown to know to be one of the hardest legs of education. I got to ask you, and if you can map this out for us, what is a typical week like for you?
So for me, obviously, I'll have my Monday through Fridays are going to be my solid actual work weeks. And based on the job that I have right now, it's going to depend on the rigor of the week. There are some weeks where I will show up and it's either 7:30 or 8 in the morning, and I don't leave until 1500 or 3 p.m. for the non-military people in the room. And once that happens, I'll make the drive back home and I'll do homework. But of course, being in the military, fitness is very important. So I'll normally start my day around 5 a.m. for either a workout class or just to make sure I'm getting in the physical portion, because that also has been helping a lot with keeping the mentality, because that can really kind of just break through the monotony of every day. So once I get through my calendar week, really the weekdays, then on those weekends, because we have a weekend program and I live about an hour or so away from campus, I will normally stay at a hotel over the weekend in the city. So I will drive over either Friday night or Saturday morning before class. I'll have my little suitcase and I'll wheel it into my classroom. And from there, we have a full day of class. So Saturdays are normally are going to be from 08:30 until about 5 p.m. And then I go to my hotel, do it all over again Sunday morning. And Sundays are our easier days this semester. So we'll start around 09:30 and then we'll end around 2 o'clock.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to be a suitcase girly like myself. Whenever I've got something very early on the weekend, I'm going to get there Friday night or, earlier and then stay. I always keep a bag packed and ready to go because you never know. Like, nobody wants to drive super far if you've got an hour. Nobody really wants to do that. And it's good to not do it if you don't have to, because that also gives you a little more extra time while you're there to not have to drive home, but to go back to your hotel and study or do whatever it is. You mentioned that you work out to keep up the physical, and I know a lot of people do that to stay mentally sharp. How has that really been helping you on this journey through law school?
I really feel like if you take care of the physical, that will automatically just have to transfer over to the mental, the emotional, and if it applies, even the spiritual or the religiousness of how you go through life. For me, I think also because the military really instilled that in me, which very good trait that they can give me. A lot of that physicality, so one, being able to wake up early and plan my day so that I can prioritize for myself that my physical fitness, my physical wellness is important. But not only that, going through a hard workout class or being committed to running, jumping, lifting, whatever it may be, those are all very physical tasks. And a lot of things, especially with running, for you to have to go long distances when you are physically tired after a very long, HIIT workout or a weightlifting session, you have to be a very mentally tough to push through and get through all those things. And that automatically transfers over to law school.
I can just imagine now you sprinting through a court, through the hallways trying to get to court. What exact branch of law, or what are you trying to do with your degree once you obtain it?
Ideally, I'd like to stay in the military. I went to the military to pay for my education. I got here and I loved it. And knowing my family, I'm used to service, I'm used to moving around a lot. Adaptability really has been my strongest suit since I've been 3 years old and I started bouncing around the country. So I would like to be a US Navy JAG officer. Should that not work out, I have found myself falling in love with my criminal law class. And that has been an amazing amount of material. My professor is stellar. And I think even litigation, because I do like to talk a lot. So maybe that's something I could play with a little bit down the line.
Hmm. So in my mind, I'm thinking that, law degree plus Navy is something akin to NCIS. Do you get a lot of civilians saying that to you all the time?
Yes, immediately. Like, did you watch the TV show? I'm like, yes, I watched the TV show.
Because I think that all of us would just want to know, okay, so is it really like that? Is it going to be like that for you? And I think that it's not, because of course that's grossly sensationalized. But where do you see yourself being really able to make a difference with your service and your law degree together?
Well, what I will say is, I believe that everyone at any point in their lifetime will need a good lawyer. And that also includes our men and women that are out at sea or on deployments on these ships, on the subs, in the air squadrons. There are entire legal departments that operate on most, if not all, major Navy bases. These sailors still have the same needs, legal needs, and advice and questions that everyone else has as a civilian. So I want to be able to help those that ultimately help us, because sometimes they do not get the opportunity for that help.
Mm. And it's all about taking that opportunity or having that opportunity afforded to you. Now, in my mind, because you go to school basically on the weekends, you are able to get some things done during the week. Is it going to take you much longer than it would take a traditional student who's going Monday through Friday?
That's correct. Because it's part time, the way it's structured is that we're going to have a fraction of what a full time student would get their 1L fall and their 1L spring. And if you continue on the traditional part time path, there are a few that will play around and they will have some type of hybrid of both full time and part time classes, as well as if you can afford to do summer classes, you're able to maybe hasten that time. But for me, on the full part time path as it's allocated by Loyola, I would take 4 years. But if I'm able to go through a few more credits over the summer or during electives in the following semesters, either fall or spring, the earliest I can graduate is at 3.5.
So that makes a lot of sense. Because I know that there's somebody in the audience who has a full time job, and maybe they're a parent, but their children are getting a little older, or, just thinking that, hey, I need to work, and can I work a full time job as well as go to school part time? This is definitely going to help someone else who's coming after you. What other advice would you share with someone who's maybe on the fence about what they should do or how they should go about it?
First and foremost, I will say find the part time program that's right for you. It could be Loyola, it could be a whole nother university. They all have their benefits and their takeaways. But for the part time program at large, I need everyone to know, if you're on the fence, just because you're not sure you can do it, you can. I have classmates that are pregnant. I have classmates that already have a ton of children. I have classmates that have more than one job. I have classmates that fly in from outside of Illinois. So, one of the huge benefits of Loyola is that we understand on the weekends you have more availability. So, I have classmates that fly in from out of the country. I have classmates that fly in from Washington, D.C. every other weekend to be able to attain this information. It is certifiably and guaranteed you can do it if this is right for you. I have noticed also that as the months go on, there are classmates that realize that this actually isn't for them, which is also okay. If you're not actually dedicated to getting this JD, which is fine, but if you are, It'll be difficult, but if you're dedicated to the cause, it is possible.
I like that because it's going to take, honestly, some serious dedication in order to get through it. What advice would you give maybe someone who their child is in the ROTC now and they're thinking, like, okay, well, this might be a good position for my child to get into? Speak from your mother's heart and tell them what you would want, what your mother told you in order to kind of get you over the hump.
Well, my mother first said choose Navy, which, to be fair, with the Army, she obviously went through different branch push and pulls. So every Army Navy game is a fun time in my household. It's very different. But she's like, choose the service that's right for you. So there's ROTC, of course, finding out if you're going to get an approved for that full ride scholarship or that 3 year, that 4 year, you have to be sure that you can also handle the addition on top of the things you need to do to get your bachelor's. So very similar to law school, ROTC, it requires a lot of time commitments that our other classmates on campus wouldn't have. So my 8 a.m. class, I've been up for 4 hours and they're complaining about the 8 a.m. class. So I'm like, oh, wow, my day's already started. They're like, oh, this is the worst. I'm like, I think it's okay. But for ROTC, the military wants you to know that we're here to support and give you options. They are willingly allowing me to go pursue a higher education while still at a full time job. I am beyond blessed to have a great chain of command. They know that I go to law school. They always ask me about it. They talk about me to all of their other friends in the military, and they want you to be able to pursue the things that you enjoy to do. Because the more diverse our service is, the stronger we are. So it's possible. Everything you want to do is possible if you actually believe it.
Yeah, and this is completely an episode about believing in yourself. What do you tell yourself on a day when you just might not be feeling up to it? What still gets you moving?
I think what helps is that I know what my why is. If I didn't know why I'm sitting here, why did I drive in at 7 in the morning for an 8:30 class? Why am I working on my trial brief and it's 9 o'clock at night on a Tuesday because it's due on a Thursday? Then I'm not sure if I could keep pushing the way that I do. But knowing that I'm not just interested in this area of life, being, of course, being a law student and the law at large, I know that I like to help people. I know that I like to talk to people. I know that I like to give advice to people. I know that I'm very interested in criminal law. I know that I enjoy learning about the legal system in the US at large. With all those things combined, from that high school student that always had that small dream and really wasn't sure how it was going to work out, I know that my why has never changed. Whenever I say, you know what, why am I here? And I can repeat that to myself, and these affirmations are great. I'm smart, I'm capable, I can do this. When I get cold called, I will know the answer. That's really what gets me through it because I can't lie, some of the weeks can be tough. When there's a hard work week and I still have to do homework, it's not always the most fun thing I've ever done.
I can only imagine, but you're right. Affirmations are what get you through. So share some of those. You shared just a few, but share some that you would want everyone to continue saying, day to day, no matter what field or position that they're in.
I know a big one for, I think, every adult. I don't know why we do this. As kids, we have all this confidence, all of this. I can do this. I know that there's no fear in me attempting something. But as we get older, I'm not sure why fear of the unknown becomes this massive thing. So I always say, like, I can do anything for 10 seconds. After 10 seconds passes, I'm like, okay, that didn't hurt too bad. I can keep going. So I think for everyone, regardless if you want to be a JD candidate or not, that's a really good one, especially for those sprints on the treadmill.
So yeah, I can do anything for 10 seconds. And you know what, you're right. Because even if it hurts a little bit, you still made it 10. And if you need to do 30, okay, do 10 more. And if you take it in 10-second bites, you'll end up taking care of the whole thing. I think that this has been one of the most motivational podcasts we've ever had because honestly, I don't think anybody else has as much on their plate as you do, D'Mia. I have never in my life seen it. Never in my life. Share some words of encouragement if you'd like to with somebody who might be thinking about taking up law school on the weekend or joining the armed forces.
I think if you're interested in it, go for it. There's always a recruiter, there's an admissions office, there are alumni who want to talk to you, there are veterans who want to talk to you. There are so many resources and people that want to speak up, and people love to be asked about themselves. What do you do? I'm happy to tell you. If you're willing to take the next step to find those other resources who can tell you the good and the bad, please ask about the bad too, because that's how you get to weigh your options. I think that's the best thing we can do. There are Facebook groups, TikToks, Instagram, Lemon 8 accounts. There is someone out there that has whatever you're looking for and who actually want to be on social media and talk about how they feel about the armed forces, good and bad, law school, good and bad. They're out there if you're willing to find them.
And hopefully they will find them just like we found you. Thank you so much for being here with me, D'Mia. I appreciate talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been great.